You know, it's ironic. This next guest, a friend of mine, we go back a while, Tom Fitton, you may know him from Judicial Watch, but when I first met him, I remember him talking in this, this group, and he was saying how the left has figured out a long time ago that the process is the punishment. You know, they don't have to put you in jail or handcuffs. They wouldn't mind doing it, but whether they get there or not is almost irrelevant. It's the idea that they can just torture you with subpoenas and the entire process and bankrupt you. That's what puts a smile on their face. They love that. The process is punishment for them idea. So I'd like to welcome to the show. He's been here before, Tom Fitton. Something happened to you, Tom, and I got to tell you, I was freaked out by this. I've warned my audience over and over that it's probably only a matter of time if you're a conservative activist before, sadly, you get an FBI knock on your door, and you, unfortunately, did. Tell us what happened.
I did. I had just gotten back, almost at 5 o'clock from skin cancer surgery at night. Spent all day dealing with the procedures, lying on the couch, and, an hour and a half later, it's at night. It was November. Knock at the door. It was the FBI serving me with a subpoena. There were two nice FBI agents there, a male and female. They helpfully pointed out that I had an Amazon package also delivered at the time. But, I'm opening the door with a giant bandage on my face. And, of course, obviously they probably didn't know I had skin cancer surgery that day. But when you use process and use a grand jury to go after someone, you need to do it for good reasons because you interfere with their lives, and you need to have a good reason for doing so. So, yeah, I hold them accountable for messing with my life and my family's life for no good reason at a sensitive time because I didn't need to do it. And, of course, we had to go out and get lawyers and such for me. And then, of course, Judicial Watch eventually got a document subpoena as well. And, they said I could come in and do a proffer. And you know what a proffer is like, Dan. You go in, you have your lawyers there, you talk informally to see what they need. If I'm truly a witness, what's the big deal? You know what they did? They pulled the proffer offer and reasserted the subpoena out of the blue, and so I had to go in for a grand jury appearance. And that happened in February. And it was 4 hours of ridiculousness where they were arguing with me about electors and what I had for lunch and the Clinton sock drawer case. And I did tell them, they probably didn't want to hear this evidence, that I was worried. And I told Trump I was worried. This is in the summer of 2020 that the left was going to destroy the country if Trump won. Because they were planning insurrection. Of course, they didn't want to hear that because I'm not aware they pursued that information.
But Tom, wait, what did they tell you they were there for? I mean, I don't. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've listened to your appearance on Jesse's show. What did they say they were even investigating?
Well, presumptively they said it was for Mar-a-Lago because Judicial Watch had been front and center on this issue about defending Trump and highlighting the Justice Department's abuse on the records harassment of Trump and the raid on his home. And it became public, and I guess they wanted to know some details, that they were told, or someone was saying, that I told Trump hide the records, which, of course, was not true. But what I did say, generally and publicly, is that the Justice Department changed their position on presidential records after President Lee's office. We had asked for Clinton records he had after he left office. He kept in a sock drawer. There were recordings. They said we can't have them because no one can second-guess the president's decision-making there. And if he has them after he leaves office, they're presumptively declassified and presumptively personal. So when all this noise started happening with Trump, we said, what is going on here? And so we highlighted this publicly. We were front and center publicly. We sued for records about what was going on. We sued for records on the subpoena and the raid on Trump's home. And what do we get for our efforts opposing the Justice Department and highlighting their corruption? An FBI subpoena and 4 hours of harassment before a grand jury.
Tom, the stories... I would say it's hard to believe, but it's not. It's hard to process because every warning I've given to supporters and listeners to the show, as we always kind of joke around, but it's not a joke anymore, all the conspiracy theories are coming true. I've warned people, if you have a prominent podcast, you're an activist, you lead a group like you do in Judicial Watch, the minute you start making a difference, you will find yourself on these people's radars. It's sad. It sounds like the kind of thing you'd hear out of North Korea, but it's very real. I can't tell you how many friends of mine have had the sad experience of having to deal with the bureaucracy or law enforcement in a similar manner as you. Now, you go and testify. They pull the proffer session. Folks, a proffer is like a king for a day deal, we call it. You go in with your lawyer, and basically anything you say in there will likely not be used against you as long as you don't lie. So I think the reason they pulled that, Tom, and put you in front of a grand jury where obviously your lawyer's not going to be there is to stick it to you. To stick it to you because they wanted you to be an apparatchik for them and you just weren't going to play along.
Yeah, and this gamesmanship all happened, and I didn't know it was happening at the time, as the Biden document side of the scandal was heating up secretly, where they got caught with their pants down because Biden had similar types of records that he didn't even have a legal defense for hiding from the Senate that were classified. And so, how do we distract from that? Let's go after someone who would be, who's been the number one defender of Trump. Not because I think Trump has right policies and such. I just know he's a crime victim. I know he has civil rights that are being abused, and he's being targeted by this malicious agency, the Justice Department, and frankly, the FBI. And I go in there, and what was really troubling about it is that one of the I had three prosecutors questioning me. Can you imagine? Right. And basically, it was about nothing, so it was even worse than that. But one of them said, do you plan to talk about this? And so he asked me that 3 times in a row, and I said, I don't know. And he said, well, by the way, you're able to if you want. And I said, you know what? Given your questions, it's a little bit chilling. I mean, so this guy was trying to get me to swear under oath that I wouldn't be able to talk about something that I had every right to. What sort of corrupt gamesmanship is that? And so when you hear about disgusting indictments of Trump and classified records and all of that, just know I was an eyewitness to the corruption. They didn't ask me anything that suggested there was anything sensitive or anything legally that they could be going after for Trump on, at least that I could see from my witness testimony and what they were questioning me about. And, of course, I know that generally from my work at Judicial Watch. What if they brought in the head of the NAACP or the head of the ACLU? I'm the head of the largest government transparency group in the country, one of the most well-known groups in the world in the area of fighting government corruption, and they target me. But let's talk about what Aragon does and what Putin does. No,
Tom,
we're turning into a regime, Dan, not a republic.
Yeah. No, I know. And the irony and why I wanted to have you on is I have some history with you, and your group has gone after both Republicans and Democrats, which is a good thing. I mean, for government corruption, nobody should get a pass. Your group has it's by lefties attacked as kind of a partisan operate, but it's not. And the irony is when you need them to turn around and do the right thing, left-leaning groups like, say, the ACLU or the NAACP or someone like that to say, hey, listen, this is kind of a step too far here in the wrong direction. Do you have a reason to be talking to Tom Fitton? I mean, he's gone after people on both sides, an anti-corruption group. Have you heard anything from that? Have they put out a statement saying, oh, my gosh, this looks like a violation of civil liberties? Have you heard anything from any leftist group?
Oh, no. I mean, the usual suspects, when it became public, I was testifying. I didn't talk about it at the time, but this was in early February. The left media was celebrating it. Think, Trump, Tom is going to turn on Trump and it's going to be really big trouble. And, I went in there. As I said on Fox the other day, it was like an MSNBC 4-hour struggle session. And they were arguing with me about matters of First Amendment policy debates.
Tom, where's this going to go?
And the 4 grand jury, I got tired of hearing myself talking after 4 hours.
Oh, yeah, I've been in enough grand juries. You look around, there's a couple. They're like snoring sometimes at the end. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to stay awake.
It's so intense, and I turned over and turned to the side, and the guy front and center was, with head down sleeping. I'm like, well, I don't blame him.
I told you. Jim, you see, I'm not making it up. I've been in a lot of grand jury. It happens, man. Listen, I've fallen asleep in a few classrooms myself, so I'm not knocking. Grand jurors, I'm not knocking you fellas and ladies. I'm just saying.
They were generally paying attention, but, 4 hours of pettiness. Who would want to watch
Tom, where do you see this going?
For 4 hours?
What is your, I don't want you to give up any kind of strategy here, but where do you see this going? I mean, it's clear at this point, knowing you, knowing your group, and having some pretty intimate knowledge of how this thing went down. This is, clearly legal harassment by them. It's not many avenues you have, but where do you see this thing going? Is this just a fear thing before the 2024 election? You think there'll be other people dragged in there?
My concern is that the Trump records thing is a distraction, that they're really targeting and have been targeting, it's been public, people who've disputed the 2020 elections, those in the states who were questioning whether they could create alternative slates of electors, those citizens who wanted to participate in that process, targeting Republican Party financing. This was a partisan fishing expedition, and I could tell it was partisan because of the tone of the questions, the nature of the questions I was getting. So it's very concerning. And, if I were Trump, given what the abuse I saw, it's penny ante compared to what they're doing to Trump. They obviously want to prosecute him. And, I fear our friends in the Congress and much of the establishment who actually probably want to see it happen don't understand that there's a significant chance Trump could be in jail before 2024 if the left has its way.
Yeah, you're right. Tom,
it's outrageous, but that's the reality check. We need to stop whistling past the graveyard on this threat to our Republican form of government, Dan.
Yeah, no, I get it. I share that equal feeling of kind of disappointment and resentment in people who don't stand up either and just say, well, I don't like his mean tweets. I wish he would just go away. Fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion. But if they can do this to him, they can do this absolutely to anyone. One of the richest, most well-known men in the world who was the president of the United States and maybe again, what hope do you have? And the answer is none. So, Tom, got to run. Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, great group. You do great work. Thanks a lot for coming on, sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dan. Appreciate the time.
You got it, man. You got it.